In the cold Atlantic winds of December 1872, a ghost ship was spotted drifting silently across the waters near the Azores Islands.
The vessel was the Mary Celeste, an American merchant brigantine built for transatlantic trade, and she was discovered with her sails partially set, her hull intact, yet her crew had vanished without a trace.
There were no signs of struggle, no bodies, and no clear explanation for why the 10 people on board had abandoned her.
The mystery of the Mary Celeste has haunted historians, sailors, and storytellers for over a century and a half, spawning countless theories, yet none that fully explain her fate.
To understand this story, we must begin with the ship herself and the voyage that was meant to be ordinary but became immortal in legend. The Mary Celeste was originally built in Nova Scotia in 1861 under the name Amazon. She was a sturdy 100-foot brigantine designed for long voyages across the unforgiving Atlantic.
But even from the start, the ship's history seemed cursed. During her very first voyage, her captain suddenly fell ill and died. Soon after, she collided with another vessel in the English Channel, and in 1867 she was wrecked off Cape Breton Island, though salvaged and repaired.
By 1868, she was purchased by American owners, refitted, and renamed the Mary Celeste, a new name they hoped to cast off her troubled beginnings. In 1872, she was placed under the command of Captain Benjamin Briggs, a seasoned and highly respected mariner known for his discipline, integrity, and devotion to his family.
Briggs was not only a capable sailor, but also a devout Christian. He was admired for his calm judgment at sea, a man who balanced faith with experience.
On this voyage, he was joined by his wife Sarah and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia. The couple's young son was left behind in Massachusetts to continue his schooling. The crew consisted of 7 experienced seamen, hand-picked by Briggs for their good character and skill. Together, they formed a company of 10 souls aboard the Mary Celeste.
On November 7, 1872, the Mary Celeste departed from New York Harbor bound for Genoa, Italy. Her cargo was over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, tightly sealed and stored in her hold.
Captain Briggs wrote letters before leaving, noting his optimism for the journey and his affection for family left behind. Nothing suggested unease or forewarning.
For nearly a month, the Mary Celeste sailed steadily across the Atlantic, unseen by the outside world. Then, on December 4, 1872, the Dei Gratia, a British brigantine, spotted her adrift between the Azores and Portugal.
At first, the ship appeared sound, sails set and course steady, but something felt wrong. No one could be seen on her deck, no signals of distress were raised.
Captain David Morehouse of the Dei Gratia ordered a boarding party to investigate. What they found would become one of history's greatest maritime enigmas.
When they climbed aboard, the ship was eerily quiet. The cabin was tidy, charts laid out, personal belongings untouched. The cargo was intact, except for 9 barrels that appeared to have leaked. The ship's lifeboat was missing. A length of rope trailed over the side, as if it had been used to secure the boat, but there was no sign of where it had gone.
Food and water supplies for over 6 months remained untouched, and there was no evidence of violence or foul play. It seemed as though the crew had simply stepped off the ship and disappeared into the sea.
The ship's logbook was found, with the last entry dated November 25, just 9 days earlier, noting her position near the Azores. After that, silence.
There was no reason in the records to suggest danger or panic. The ship was seaworthy, the weather relatively calm, and yet her crew had vanished without explanation.
The Mary Celeste was sailed to Gibraltar by a salvage crew from the Dei Gratia, and investigations began immediately. What the courts uncovered and the theories that followed only deepened the mystery of the so-called ghost ship.
There was When the Mary Celeste arrived at Gibraltar on December 12, 1872, she immediately became an object of fascination and suspicion.
The British Vice Admiralty Court opened a formal inquiry led by Attorney General Frederick Sully Flood, who would scrutinize every detail with a mixture of caution and prejudice. The salvage crew of the Dei Gratia, who had brought the Mary Celeste safely to port, stood before the court, explaining how they had found the ship deserted yet seaworthy. But instead of being hailed as heroes, they found themselves under suspicion. Sully Flood suggested that perhaps they had murdered the crew of the Mary Celeste to claim salvage rights. The court examined the cargo, 1,701 barrels of alcohol, of which 9 were empty. These barrels, made of red oak instead of white oak, were more porous, and it was possible that vapors had escaped.
Could fumes from the alcohol have caused fear of explosion, prompting Captain Briggs to abandon ship temporarily, only for disaster to strike? But others noted that no signs of fire or explosion were found, and the cargo hold was intact. If panic had set in, why was the ship still in good condition?
Attention turned to the crew themselves. Could mutiny have been the answer? Did the sailors murder Briggs and his family to seize the alcohol or the ship?
Yet this theory crumbled under scrutiny. Briggs had chosen his men carefully, all with solid reputations. No evidence of struggle was found aboard. Some whispered of piracy. Could another vessel have attacked, killed, or kidnapped the crew and left the Mary Celeste to drift?
But again, the evidence failed to match. The cargo was intact, the valuables untouched, and no signs of boarding or theft were found. Captain Briggs's sextant, chronometer, and navigation papers were missing, but these could have been taken if the crew had left in the lifeboat willingly. The court leaned toward foul play, but without evidence, no one could be convicted. After weeks of inquiry, the salvage crew was eventually awarded payment, though far less than expected, as suspicion still lingered.
The world's newspapers devoured the tale, and the legend of the Mary Celeste spread like wildfire.
To the public, the ship was no longer just another merchant vessel. She was now a ghost ship, cursed and inexplicable, forever tied to mystery.
As the years passed, theories multiplied. Some claimed that Captain Briggs, overwhelmed by stress or sudden madness, had fled the ship with his family.
Others suggested a sudden waterspout or seaquake had terrified the crew, making them abandon ship in haste, tethered by rope, but lost when the line broke.
More fantastical ideas emerged too: sea monsters, giant squids, even alien abductions, imaginings of storytellers feeding on the unknown.
But beneath the wild tales, the reality remained unsolved. What could cause 10 experienced people, including a devoted captain, his wife and child, to abandon a safe ship without returning? The mystery deepened further when whispers began of conspiracies involving insurance fraud, smuggling, and deliberate scuttling of ships for profit. Could Briggs or his owners have staged an elaborate plan that went horribly wrong? Or had fate simply dealt another cruel blow to a ship already scarred by bad luck? The Gibraltar inquiry ended without answers, leaving the world to speculate. And as the years rolled forward, the ship herself would continue her cursed journey.
After the Gibraltar inquiry closed, the Mary Celeste was released to her owners and quietly returned to service. But her reputation had already been poisoned.
Few men wanted to sail aboard a ship forever branded a ghost vessel. Still,
Commerce demanded that she continue. For the next decade, she made voyages across the Atlantic and to the West Indies.
Yet her luck never improved.
Voyage after voyage brought misfortune, severe storms, delays, and financial losses. The ship that had once been a proud brigantine became an omen of bad luck.
By the early 1880s, the Mary Celeste had changed hands several times, each owner eager to rid himself of the cursed ship.
Her cargoes grew less profitable, her condition worsened, and her reputation made her difficult to insure.
Finally, in 1885, under the command of Captain Gilman Parker, the Mary Celeste embarked on her last voyage.
She departed New York loaded with a cargo of cheap goods, foodstuffs, and household items, bound for Port-au-Prince in Haiti. But this voyage would end in scandal and ruin.
On January 3, 1885, she ran aground on a coral reef off the coast of Haiti. The ship was wrecked beyond repair.
Salvage investigations revealed something suspicious. Her cargo had been wildly overinsured.
Captain Parker and his associates were accused of an insurance fraud scheme, deliberately wrecking the Mary Celeste to claim money. The trial ended in humiliation. Parker's career was destroyed, and within months he fell ill and died, seen by some as yet another curse of the Mary Celeste.
Mary Celeste herself was left broken on the reef, abandoned to the sea.
Her bones rotted there under the Haitian sun, claimed at last by the ocean that had carried her across decades of misfortune. But the mystery of her abandoned voyage in 1872 lived on. Writers, historians, and sailors kept her story alive, retelling the strange disappearance of her crew again and again. Even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, was inspired to write a fictionalized account in 1884 that helped make the tale world famous. From that point on, the Mary Celeste was no longer just a ship. She became a legend, a ghost story rooted in fact, but surrounded by endless speculation. Her final resting place may have been on a Haitian reef, but her true legacy was far stranger, an enduring riddle of the sea. The mystery of the Mary Celeste did not end with her wreck on the reefs of Haiti. In fact, her legend only grew stronger, carried from sailor to sailor, writer to writer, until the ghost ship became one of the sea's most enduring riddles. Many theories have been offered to explain why Captain Briggs and his crew abandoned a sound ship in calm seas, never to be seen again. Some of the earliest suspicions turned toward mutiny. Could the crew have risen against their captain, killed Briggs and his family, and fled? Yet mutiny made little sense. Briggs had hand-picked his men for loyalty, and no bloodstains, broken furniture, or signs of struggle were found aboard. Others speculated about piracy. The Atlantic, after all, was not entirely safe from raiders. But pirates rarely leave valuables untouched. The cargo, personal belongings, and even navigational instruments remained on board. Attention then shifted to the cargo itself, 1,701 barrels of alcohol. 9 barrels were found empty, their red oak staves more porous than the others. Could escaping fumes have filled the ship, sparking panic that an explosion was imminent? If so, Briggs may have ordered the crew into the lifeboat temporarily, trailing behind the ship on a rope until the fumes dispersed. But if the line snapped or came loose, the Mary Celeste would sail on, leaving her crew stranded at sea. This theory fit the evidence and remains one of the most plausible explanations, yet it could not be proven. Another idea was that a waterspout, like a tornado at sea, had struck suddenly, terrifying the crew. Such a force could drench the ship, flood the hold, and make it seem as if the vessel was about to sink. But when found, the Mary Celeste was dry, her hull intact.
No storm damage explained her abandonment.
Some geologists suggested an undersea earthquake in the Azores region, which sailors called a seaquake.
A shock like this could have shifted barrels, cracked the hull, or created sudden terror of capsizing.
But again, the Mary Celeste showed no structural damage, and her cargo was mostly secure.
As rational explanations struggled, darker tales began to creep in. Some spoke of sea monsters, giant squids or serpents dragging men into the deep.
Others whispered of supernatural curses, that the Mary Celeste carried doom within her timbers since her first ill-fated voyage.
By the late 19th century, newspapers embellished the story, fueling the legend of a ghost ship whose crew vanished into thin air.
Even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's fictionalized tale, J. Habakkuk Jepson's statement, added supernatural flair, suggesting secret conspiracies and racial revenge.
Though fiction, it only deepened public fascination, cementing Mary Celeste as a symbol of the unknown.
Modern historians lean toward practical theories, alcohol fumes, crew error, or a sudden mishap with the lifeboat. Yet none can answer why 10 people, all experienced, all rational, would make a decision that doomed them so completely.
The Mary Celeste became not just a maritime puzzle, but a mirror of human fear, our struggle to explain the unexplainable.
The story of the Mary Celeste did not end with the wreckage on Haitian reefs, nor with the unanswered questions of Gibraltar's court.
Instead, the ship entered the realm of legend, a place where truth and imagination blur and mysteries refuse to die.
For sailors of the late 19th century, her name was spoken with unease. The Mary Celeste became a warning, a reminder that the sea could claim men not only with storms, but with silence.
In popular culture, the tale spread quickly. Newspapers across Europe and America sensationalized the mystery, their engravings showing ghostly decks and vanishing crews.
Writers embellished the story, turning fact into folklore. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's fictionalized account in 1884 painted the abandonment as a dark conspiracy.
Though he never intended to present it as truth, many readers believed it, and the Mary Celeste was cemented as the archetype of a ghost ship.
Over the decades, her mystery found its way into novels, films, radio dramas, and countless retellings. Each new generation added its own interpretation.
Theories persisted: mutiny, piracy, alcohol fumes, seaquake. None proven, all debated.
For scientists and historians, the Mary Celeste represents a puzzle of human decision-making under fear. Why abandon safety for peril? Why leave a ship that could carry you home?
For storytellers, she embodies something deeper, the fascination with the unknown, the stories that linger when evidence runs dry. And for the public, she is a reminder that the ocean still holds secrets. Even in an age of technology, satellites, and sonar, some mysteries refuse to give up their answers. The Mary Celeste stands as one of the most enduring legends in maritime history, not because of what is known, but because of what can never be known.
The ship's timbers rotted long ago, her remains lost to reef and tide, but her name lives on, carried in whispers across oceans and in the pages of history books.
To this day, when sailors speak of ghost ships, the Mary Celeste is always the first name. She is the riddle of the Atlantic, a story without an ending.
And perhaps that is why her mystery endures, because sometimes the most haunting truths are those forever lost to the sea.